Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivara-dhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivara-dhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtadharashata Shri Shabbat His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtadharashata Shri Shabbat His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Gangi Munamai Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the humble devotees. All glories to the humble devotees. All glories to the humble devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guru. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sixth Canto, Prescribed Duties for Mankind, Chapter 16, King Chitaketa meets Supreme Lord, Text 40. So if everybody could please repeat after me. Ajitam, Ajita, Tada, Babata, Yadaha, Bhagavatam, Dharmam, Anavadyam, Niskinchana, Ye, Munaya, Atmarama, Yam, Upasate, Pavargaya. I'd like to chant Javada Prabhu. Unless Soul wants to chant.
I'm sorry?
Unless Bhakta Soul wants to chant.
I don't think so. Maybe tomorrow.
Okay.
Chitamajitatada bhavata Yada Bhagavatam Dharma Manavadyam Nishkinchanaye Munaya Atma Ramayam Upasate Pavargaya Jitamajitatada Bhavata Jitamajitatada Bhavata Yada Bhagavatam Dharma Manavadyam Nishkinchanaye Munaya Atma Ramayam Upasate Pavargaya Jitamajitatada, it's okay. Jitamajitatada Bhavata Yada Bhagavatam Dharma Manavadyam Nishkinchanaye Munaya Atma Ramayam Upasate Pavargaya Jitamajitatada Bhavata Yada Bhagavatam Dharma Manavadyam Nishkinchanaye Munaya Atma Ramayam Upasate Pavargaya Nishkinchanaye Munaya Atma Ramayam Upasate Pavargaya. Okay. Please repeat after me. Jitam, conquered. Ajita, O unconquerable one. Tada, then. Bhavata, by your lordship. Yada, when. Aha, spoke. Bhagavatam, which helps the devotee approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dharmam, the religious process. Anavadyam, faultless, free from contamination. Niskinchanaha, who have no desire to be happy with material opulences. Yea, those who, Munayaha, great philosophers and exalted sages. Atma Aramaha, who are self-satisfied, being completely aware of their constitutional position as eternal servants of the Lord. Yam, whom, upasate, worship. Apavargaya, for achieving liberation from material bondage. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. O unconquerable one, when you spoke about Bhagavata-dharma, which is the uncontaminated religious system for achieving the shelter of your lotus feet, that was your victory. Persons who have no material desires, like the Kumaras, who are self-satisfied sages, worship you to be liberated from material contamination. In other words, they accept the process of Bhagavata-dharma to achieve shelter at your lotus feet. Purport. As stated by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anya Bilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmani Avartam, Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhakti Uttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desires for material profit, or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. The Nārada Pancharatra also says, Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tat paratvaina nirmalam hirishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti uchite. One should be free from all material designations and cleansed of all material contamination. He should be restored to his pure identity, in which he engages his senses in the service of the proprietor of the senses. That is called devotional service. This is also called Bhagavata-dharma. Without material aspirations, one should simply serve Krishna, as advised in Bhagavad Gita, Nārada Pancharatra, and Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavata-dharma is the process of religion enunciated by pure devotees, direct representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead like Nārada, Śukadeva Gosvāmī, and their humble servants in the disciplic succession. By understanding Bhagavata-dharma, one immediately becomes free from material contamination. Living entities who are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are loitering in this material world suffering. When they are instructed by the Lord Himself about Bhagavata-dharma and they adopt it, that is victory for the Lord. For He then reclaims these fallen souls. A devotee following the principles of Bhagavata-dharma feels very much obligated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can understand the difference between life without Bhagavata-dharma and life with Bhagavata-dharma, and thus he ever remains obliged to the Lord. Taken to Krishna consciousness and bringing fallen souls to Krishna consciousness is victory for Lord Krishna. Savai pumsam purodamo yato bhaktir hokshaje ahoitakipatiyata yatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which man can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is the pure transcendental process of religion. Om Jnanativadandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuvanamilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karidavachalam Pangam Langayate Girin Yat Kripa Tamahan Vande Shri Gurun Dinitaranam Vancha Kabladubhisha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Translation again. One more time. O unconquerable one, when you spoke about Bhagavata-dharma, which is the uncontaminated religious system for achieving the shelter of your lotus feet, that was your victory. Persons who have no material desires, like the Kumaras, who are self-satisfied sages, worship you to be liberated from material contamination. In other words, they accept the process of Bhagavata-dharma to achieve shelter at your lotus feet. So, just so everybody knows, this new clock here, it's bright blue, can't miss the time here. it's almost like it's attracting your time is here. So this was bought by Brisa, Bhakti and Brisa. So because she was hearing, because Bhajanarayan Swami would sometimes say, "Oh, that clock is so small. That clock is so small. Does anybody got a watch?" So she got this. So. Also, we like to welcome Nelson. Nelson made it to our Krishna Lounge last night down in Chula Vista. Apparently, you just live 10 minutes away, right? From there, that location? So, and interesting is, there was another fellow, say Fabian or Fabian. He comes to the Krishna Lounge here in Pacific Beach, and you saw him here before, right? Yeah, so anyways, he wanted to speak with myself and Mukunda Charan Prabhu about some deep spiritual topics. So he showed up at the temple yesterday, and we drove him down there, Fabian, and so he attended the lounge down there as well. And we got to speak 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back, answer his questions. But anyways, it turns out that Nelson and Fabian, they went to high school together. So it's nice. There's two more devotees like that too also, Adriana and Jessica, those of you who know them. But they grew up here in San Diego, and they went to high school together. Then they just saw each other at the temple, They still come by, so. And also Nelson is Govardhan's neighbor, like long-term neighbor, isn't it? Like how many years? Like growing up, right? Over 20 years neighbor. So now they're here at the temple. They meet again.
Maybe Krishna consciousness is contagious.
Yeah. So here, the process of Bhagavata-dharma, process of devotional service, is being mentioned once again. It's mentioned, right, quite often, the process of devotional service. And it's interesting, Srila Prabhupada, he translated, generally with these scholars and other people, they translate the word bhakti differently than Srila Prabhupada did. They translate it as bhakti as like a feeling or emotion or something like that. There's different synonyms for this, right? Feelings, emotions, on and on and on. Love, right? Just imagine if Srila Prabhupada translated bhakti as love. Already as it is, people are very confused about that word love. And then when they come to Krishna consciousness, and if Srila Prabhupada translated bhakti as love, I mean, sometimes devotees already can, there's a bit of an underlying worry that people aren't understanding. Some people, of course, aren't understanding Krishna consciousness properly, in a philosophical sense, but what to speak of if Prabhupada just translated as love, bhakti, love. Right? Okay, what does that mean, right? So Srila Prabhupada translated it differently, and he translated it as devotional service. Quite interesting, actually, because you could say service is seva, right? Seva, service, bhakti, right? So bhakti, devotional service. So that's how you translate it, which he is making the point that it is active. It is not, a devotee is not idle. A devotee is not inactive. A devotee is very active in Krishna's service. It's very important. Just like the two great warriors, right? Who are they? Of epic history of India? Vaishnava warriors, yeah. Yeah, Arjuna and Hanuman. Pure devotees of Ram and pure devotees of Krishna. And they were not sitting back, inactive. They were on the field, literally. Arjuna was on the field. And Arjuna, he also, to be active for Krishna, as we see in the case of Arjuna and Hanuman, they are one-pointed in their determination. They're focused, laser-focused. Just like the Kshatriyas, they would means the warrior class, those protecting and fighting for the good, protecting innocent people and so on. There is a need for that, no matter what people say. Because some people say there's no need, but there's actually need. That, at least that's our understanding from Srimad Bhagavatam. But the training that they would do is they would shoot arrows. So one time, Arjuna, his teacher, anyone remember his teacher's name? Yeah. They were doing a test, and then Dronacharya was asking different students what they see. And the student was saying, I see was it a bird or a fish? Huh? Bird. So one student said, I see a mountain, and I see a tree, and I see a bird. And then, Dronacharya wasn't so satisfied with that. It's okay. And then the next student says, okay, I see a tree, and I see a bird. And then Dronacharya is, not so satisfied with that. And then Dronacharya asked Arjuna, what do you see? And he said, I see the eye of the bird, Means he's not seeing anything else. He's not seeing a mountain, he's not seeing a tree, he's just seeing, direct. Or as stated in Srimad Bhagavad-gītā, Srimad Bhagavad-gītā 2:41, Vyavasayatmaka buddhir ekeha kudanandana bahushaka anantascha buddhayo avisayinam. That those who are on this path, means the path of Krishna consciousness, they are resolute in their determination and their aim is one. Son of Kunti. But those who are not on this path, what does he say? Their intelligence is many-branched. Means means they're seeing the mountain, they're seeing the tree, they're seeing the car, they're seeing all this, but they're not focused. So we see from Arjuna that one is he was not inactive, he was very active and focused. And Prabhupada, reading this, specifically the purport from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur of this verse, Prabhupada, he would say that his inspiration came from different personalities and different his inspiration to come to America at an advanced age with big risk. But he would say that his inspiration came from different persons and different statements in Scripture or different commentaries. So this was one of them, 241, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur purport, the commentary. And he said, and in the commentary, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he's saying that whether the world implodes or explodes, or whether everything goes up in flames, whether there's a universal devastation or political crisis or whatever, like any unfortunate thing you could think of happens. He said that my only business is to carry out the orders of my spiritual master through life or through death. And he says, I don't even care about liberation. I don't care about entering, this higher destinations, anything. The main business is to carry out the order of the spiritual master. So Prabhupada, reading that, he said, well, he was very inspired. He said, and he obviously fulfilled that. So yeah, it's an important aspect to be focused and attentive in all of one's activities in Krishna consciousness. So there's devotional service, and again, as Srila Prabhupada translated, it means to be active, to be serving Krishna actively, and to be free from all different types of selfish motives. Not that I serve Krishna because he satisfies my desires, or I serve Krishna because it's like sometimes people enter relationships so they could, like there was one devotee, I don't know how he got into all these parties. And Tirthamaj, because Tirthamaj, our old friend Tirthamaj, he an instructor, anyways, he had this Shastradhan paper. Shastradhan means the gift of scripture. So Shastradhan means pretty much you collect a bunch of donations from devotees, and then you get all these books sponsored, and then you put them in doctors' offices and libraries, hospitals, schools, just wherever you can. Nail salons. So you put books all there. So it's actually a good way for people who don't have the skill or don't have the art or haven't somehow or other can't pull it off to distribute books, because not everybody could pull it off apparently. Anyway, so he was doing that. He was heading that up, Shastradhan, for many years. Tirtha Maharaj was Mahatattva Prabhu previously. So anyways, there was one devotee, and a Prabhupada disciple actually, I don't know where he is, I haven't heard of him for a while. But he would get into all these parties in Hollywood, and he would give all these whatever, they're entertainers, like people, like they're the gods, right? The ones who are producing movies, we offer our humble obeisances, and Maharajas and Maharanis, right, of the modern world. But they're entertainers, But anyways, he would, all these famous, very, not what do you call, it's not the guy sitting there at the coffee table, for 2 minutes in the movie, It's like main actors, main actresses. And he would get into all these parties, and then you would see him, and he would give Prabhupada's books, and he would take photos with them, and the famous person would be holding a book like this. I don't know if his name was so he'd be holding a book like this, with the famous guy or, famous woman or something. And so, anyway, so I'm bringing this up because such people, sometimes people become friends with such people, means rich and famous people, just to enjoy what they can offer. Means, hey, I don't got a lot of money, or I definitely have less than you, so I'm going to become your friend so I could, so I could go to whatever fabulous trips with you, or I could, whatever. So in other words, to serve Krishna in a similar way, in a selfish way, just you could say, oh, I'm enjoying the benefits of serving Krishna, right? This, that, so many things. But we should serve Krishna with no selfish desire. Means we're not after what Krishna could give us, we're after Krishna, Krishna's pleasure. Just like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had said that when people, they pray to God for things, it is not love of God, it is love of things, right? And God's the supplier. All right. What did you say? It's a step up from just not praying, but It's an important thing. So there's pure devotional service. So Rupa Goswami, Anyabhilashita Shunyam. It is devoid of all of these different things, of the desire for material profit through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. So one thing in relation to this is that Srila Prabhupada gives the example of philosophical speculation, or you could say some tinge of selfishness. Of course, Yudhishthira Maharaj is a pure devotee of Krishna, but anyway, somehow or other Prabhupada gives this example of Yudhishthira Maharaj hesitating to following Krishna's orders. Right? Krishna said shoot, or he said lie about a particular thing, which that's another thing. Okay, well, generally lying's not good, right? But sometimes you lie for a good purpose. There's justifications. It's not black and white. So Krishna said to lie for a good reason. But Yudhishthira Maharaj, he hesitated. And Prabhupada said this is a... So similarly, in our devotional service, part of pure devotional service means not to hesitate. Like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to get too close to Krishna, or I don't want to get too close to the spiritual master. It's like a hesitation going on. And again and again and again, as Māsuchaha, Srila Prabhupada translates in Bhagavad Gita, he says, Māsuchaha means do not worry. That means let Krishna take control. Do not fear. That means have faith in Krishna, that he'll protect us. And do not hesitate. Means don't think that there's something else out there for you. Or we shouldn't think that there's something else out there for us. So don't hesitate. But anyways, there's many aspects of pure devotional service. That's some of them. And by engaging in pure devotional service, like Srila Prabhupada asked one time, how many pure devotees are there in ISKCON? You ask some people that nowadays, and what will they say? 0. Right? Those are called...
Or they'll say themselves.
Or they say themselves, yeah. They say themselves, yeah. I'm a pure devotee and others aren't. But if you ask, Srila Prabhupada was asked the question, how many pure devotees are in ISKCON? And then Srila Prabhupada asked the devotee that, well, how many devotees are there in ISKCON? And then the devotee said, well, there's about 48 now, something like that. There wasn't much. Now there's quite a lot, actually, in comparison to 48. And then Srila Prabhupada said, okay, then there's 48 pure devotees in ISKCON. It's an interesting comment. Now you could say, okay, well, like there's different definitions of Uttamadhikari, the highest devotee, right? There's one definition, and Prabhupada gives another definition, and there's different definitions. So you could say, at least pure devotee in, you could say, aspiration. They're on the path, they're aspiring. Practically, they're there just a little time, right? Like a mango, right? Just a little time. Let it ripen a little more. So, but yeah, if we engage in the process of devotional service, engage in our senses in the service of Rishikesh, the master of the senses, then we become free from material designations. Of course, first and foremost, free from the bodily concept of life. And we realize that we're spirit soul, and we realized farthermore that we're servants of Krishna. And this is all possible under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master and the disciplic succession. The Gaudiya Vaishnava disciplic succession, coming from Krishna, Brahma, Nārada, Vyasadeva, coming all the way down, Śukadeva Gosvāmī, Nārada Muni. So we have to act according, if we want to make progress, we have to act according to the injunctions of the scripture, which means injunctions of the guru, because the guru means one who repeats the scripture. Nārada, what's that? Shruti Smriti Purana Adi Pancharatra Vidim Vina, that one has to follow the Vedas, Shruti Smriti, Vedic literature, or else it's considered just to be a disturbance in society. Means their activities, their thoughts, in spiritual society it's just considered a disturbance without following. And part of Bhagavata-dharma is, or part of Krishna consciousness, is to try to bring people to Krishna consciousness. It's not a non-missionary movement. It's actually a missionary movement. Means all the members should see themselves on a mission. And the mission is to, the same as Krishna, the mission is to give Krishna consciousness to others. Or as Prabhupada says here, reclaim fallen souls. And that's a great victory. And this is actually the way that ourselves and others can actually be satisfied. The supreme dharma, or occupation for all humanity, is by which people, men, women, whatever, people could be people engaged in the transcendental service of Krishna. But that service has to be two characteristics. One, uninterrupted, means nirantara, right? Continuous, uninterrupted. And what interrupts devotional service? One thing, material desires, right? Engaging in pure devotional service, and then, material desire, that interrupts, right? So therefore we try to get rid of the material desires. So it has to be uninterrupted and unmotivated. It means no material motivation for it. And then this completely satisfies us. And this is the path of satisfaction for other people as well. So we try to educate people in that way. Okay, does anybody...
We understand that the highest philosophy is simultaneous oneness and difference. It's easy to understand the oneness. Everything is Krishna's energy. We emanate from Krishna. But to understand the difference is where I have trouble. So we can affirm the oneness without the difference, but can you affirm the difference without the oneness? And if you can't do so, is the highest philosophy not oneness and difference, but unity and diversity?
Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I do,
Okay.
but I usually do.
Please.
I'll say something and then you can clean it up and clarify and expand.
Well, I don't think I need to clean it up, clarify. Maybe comment on it, yeah.
The question is odd because and it's a legitimate question, but it's a little, if we take the first statement, simultaneously. Simultaneously means they coexist. So to say explain one without the other, well, then you're negating the fact that they simultaneously, and the fact that, well, how can they exist simultaneously? That's why it's called achinta, or inconceivable. It's not an easy concept. Prabhupada said the sign of intelligence, I was sitting in the room, the sign of intelligence is the ability to balance opposing points within the mind. So yeah, it's a bit of a brain strain. Because in the Vedic tradition, you have these two schools. You have the Sankarcharyas, followers, that everything is one. And then you have our Ramanuja Madhvacharya sitting like this. Dualism. There's always the Jiva and Jivatma. So you have within the Vedic tradition these two schools that are always competing. Now, of course, we're Vaishnavas, so we're with Madhvacharya. Jivatma, Atma. Two birds in the tree, Katha Upanishad. But one of the mystic powers, or not, one of the wonders and the sublime getting to the essence of truth is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying, actually, these two exist simultaneously. One last thing. What is something that we see practically every day in San Diego that is simultaneously one and different? That is simultaneously present everywhere, all pervasive, and also localized. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the material world is dictionary for the spirit. In other words, by understanding the material nature, examples from it, you can actually read or understand the spiritual world. So Krishna has given a profound example that is seen practically daily that confirms the possibility. How can it happen? It's confirmed daily. Something that's all pervasive and localized. Other than Dravida and Balaram, anyone know what that is? Yes, Mataji. Defend your answer.
Well, it's in one place, because it's like in the universe, it's in one place, it's one thing, but at the same time, like the sun can be shining here in San Diego and also in LA and also up in...
Excellent. It's localized. It's a globe. It's a place. It's a loka. It's got Vivishvan in charge of it. So it's a location, and yet it's shining everywhere. So that's a Chinta Beta Beta Tattva. Krishna is present everywhere, simultaneous. So many things are a Chinta Beta Beta Tattva, actually, in our Vaishnava tradition. We're Nitai Sarup Krishna Das, and yet we follow the rules of Varnashram Dharma. I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on it. So there it is. Simultaneous, inconceivable, oneness and difference. And as far as unity and diversity, diversity and unity, it's saying the same thing. So I may have missed something in the question, but it seems like it's kind of... Anyway, there it is. Now,
Unity and unity and diversity. So yeah, we're all working together, right? And that way we're one team, one family, one movement, working together, moving in the same way. Although diversity, we're different people, you know, different people with different understandings and different concerns, and one person's concern is not another person's concern. Some people are like, man, that was amazing kirtan. Another person's like, well, I have some concerns about it. One person, that was amazing prasadam, right? Another person, I have some concerns about it. So different. So, but unity and diversity shouldn't be confused with unity and, what is it? Perversity? Means it's not that we're just a bunch of unhealthy, deranged people. That's the problem, actually, with without having a sound, spiritual, powerful philosophy, and without having, you know, high moral principles. That's a tendency to be one in a movement and one in a and moving in a particular direction, whether it's a family or whatever it may be. But it's just, it's like a you know, yeah, that's the tendency without Krishna consciousness. You have something, Tyler?
Thank you so much for a wonderful class. I had two reflections from the purport. The first one is there's an interesting term that Prabhupada's using here for our situation in the material world. He's saying that we're loitering in this material world suffering. I remember, I think that's the first time I've heard that. I think it's a great idea. Remember when we were in San Francisco and I was talking about how it's really hard to find a place to sit? You know, it's so dense and small, and the few places you can sit publicly, there's people already piled in there. And I remember hearing the Bhagavatam through our studies that the material world's such a difficult place, we sometimes not even find a place to sit. And that's confirmed in the Bhagavatam. So you're essentially loitering. You're like, walking around San Francisco, you're loitering the whole time. And that's kind of our condition here. Loitering means you don't have a purpose. You're standing there. So it's interesting Prabhupada saying that. Yeah. So no purpose and no place to sit. So that's an awful condition. He calls that suffering. So I don't know if you want to comment on that, but that's really interesting. The other part is this idea of victory. That's really awesome, the idea that victory when someone comes to Krishna consciousness, and also when we bring others to it. And it's a victory for Krishna. So then how do we or he celebrate victory? Or it's pretty awesome, that term. So
yeah, victory. Yeah, I mean, the victory is that people are taking, it's a great victory when somebody takes to Krishna consciousness. Like Srila Prabhupada said in the purport of in the introduction of his Bhagavad Gita, as it is, he says that even if out of this endeavor we are able to make one pure devotee, he said we consider our attempt a great success. So even just one. So yeah, it's a great victory for Krishna, for the devotees when people take to Krishna consciousness. And we should actually be after those results. We shouldn't be thinking, oh, well, when people will take to Krishna consciousness, they'll take to it. We'll wait here very nicely, very comfortably, and when they come, we'll help them. But we should actually go out of our way to help them, at least offer it. And Srila Prabhupada was actually concerned with results. Sometimes people think it's very mundane to read the book scores every morning. People think, oh, God, what's wrong with you guys? Reading how many books you distributed every day. I mean, when I was distributing books, I have done that before, by the way. I always make that joke, but sorry. I'll stop saying it. But when I was distributing books full time a number of years ago, we used to individually report the scores. So in other words, if I did terrible, from a point of view, means not many books, everyone would very clearly know that. Not that I would be on this, it would be, okay, Vijay and Balaram and, Santosh and Krishnadas, they distributed 200 small books and 500 big books for, $1,500. Okay, Jai, Hari Hari Bol, And then no one would know that I actually distributed $25 worth, if you follow that system. But the system we were following before it was individual. So yeah, there was, somebody distributing 150, 200, 250, whatever it was, and then somebody else, 25 or in terms of the Lakshmi. And the amount of books. But anyways, some people may think it's mundane. Even how we read the score now. So many books. Well, why are you after results? I thought you guys aren't into that. Or what to speak of the money. Why are you guys reading how much money you collected? That's kind of weird, someone may say. Now, this is actually coming from Srila Prabhupada. Tamal Krishna Gosvāmī, one of Prabhupada's early disciples and leaders, he would come back to LA from his book distribution Harinam, and then Srila Prabhupada would ask him every day at night, he would say, how many books and how much Lakshmi? Prabhupada would ask him. He wanted to report. So, but that wasn't the main thing in terms of results. The other thing I wanted to say about results is that Srila Prabhupada was in India, and back then, now we have, temples are popping up, every other month. You know, they're building a lot of temples over there. You know, I don't know how many temples are over there now, but I'm having a hard time keeping track of them. But back then, I mean, they were just building them, right? Vrindavan wasn't up, Juhu wasn't up, Mayapur wasn't up. You know, these were the main first few temples, right? And it was difficult to get devotees to surrender. You know, India was tough, to say the least. To get because Prabhupada spread the movement with mostly American disciples. And to get Americans to surrender to India and to live there, and I mean, devotees were like really not wanting to be there. Actually, there's cases where a devotee was overhearing a conversation between Srila Prabhupada and two of his leading disciples, you know, sannyasi leading disciples, and they were arguing with Srila Prabhupada, saying, "We don't want to be here in India. Like, let us go. We want to go preach in America. We want to go preach. We feel like businessmen just collecting money here for these temples, and just like, let us go." And, you know, but of course, the devotee was shocked that these devotees were arguing with Prabhupada because, you know, it's a misunderstanding. They're business people. They were making life members, in which case they get all of Srila Prabhupada's books, and they get to stay in any temple they want for 3 days, whatever. And they get, you know, life membership. And then, you know, people give a donation, they build a temple. It's a necessary thing at the time, especially. So there was a lot to manage, and it was difficult, very difficult. Actually, most people couldn't handle it at all. So Prabhupada had Tamal Krishna Gosvāmī as the GBC for India. It means he was helping overlook all these things. And just to give you one, actually he was a GBC before he was a sannyasi, and then afterwards Prabhupada kept him as a GBC in India. Overseen, yes. Okay, overseen. Okay, we'll rewind. He was overseeing India. Now, so yeah, it was very difficult. And as a householder, which he was a brahmachari, then he was a householder for a very short time before he accepted sannyas. But as a householder, he was managing as a GBC, and he went to Prabhupada crying. And then he was saying, "Prabhupada, I'm so busy with so many things, and all the sannyasis, they're saying, oh, we're sannyasis, we're not going to help you manage anything. We're going to chant shlokas and verses and read Bhagavad Gita and preach, and you can manage everything." So he was crying to Prabhupada, and then Prabhupada started to laugh. And Prabhupada said, "Oh, this is Krishna's mercy on you, that Krishna's keeping you so busy that you cannot fall into Maya. You cannot fall into illusion." But anyways, he continues as a sannyasi, and as a sannyasi there in India, managing, he was there for years, and he was really wanting to, you know, go and travel and preach in America. And eventually Prabhupada said, "Okay, fine, you could do that." So then he went to America and he started the Radha Damodar bus party. And then at one particular point, Prabhupada wanted him back because no one else was apparently taking care of the job in India that well as a GBC. So Prabhupada wanted him back. So then Prabhupada met him in America, and he was trying to get him back, and then Tamal Krishna Gosvāmī was saying, "But I'm preaching, Prabhupada, I'm preaching." And then Prabhupada said, "What is this preaching?" He said, "Preaching means results." He said, "Where are your results?" And then he said, "Well, I do have results, Prabhupada." And I said, "Well, okay, what are they?" He said, "You should go back to India. You know, we need help there. What are your results?" And then at that point, one by one, he called in 10 new bhaktas, you know, shaved up and tilak and, you know, all dressed up and, you know, looking very sharp and alive and healthy and bright and happy. And they came in and they one offered a rose to Prabhupada, then offered their dandavats. So 10 men came in like that, you know. And then Prabhupada said, okay. He said, you can stay in America. So anyways, it's a long way to say that victory, we should be after certain results. Of course, not overly attached, but all right. Yes.
But the prayers began, Chitraketu, Jita Majita. And now we have, Ajita Jita, how the unconquerable can be conquered. You know, that verse by Brahma, you know, one of his prayers. But this one is talking about the victory of the Lord, and Prabhupada keeps coming back to that in the purport. How when someone surrenders or you preach and you think, then that's the Lord's victory, the Lord's victory. Yeah. So he gets conquered by the devotee with love, and he conquers by, the devotees spreading Krishna consciousness. It's very interesting.
Yes, just last is that similarly, just as it could be a great victory, what a devotee does, it could also be a great opposite. What's the opposite of victory? Failure. Or you could say defeat. Prabhupada, it's in the 3rd canto. It's just a small, like maybe 2-liner, 1-liner, but we could look it up. But it's indicating that a devotee's misbehavior, a devotee's sinful activity, and all they're in the Krishna consciousness, it is a scar on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, something like that. In other words, it reflects. What we do reflects. So in other words, it makes Krishna look bad. Or in some cases, devotees, they do things and they make their guru look bad because it's reflecting. You know, there's a connection there. So we don't, So it could go that way, or it could go another way, that it is a great victory for Srila Prabhupada's proud to have such disciples. Srila Prabhupada's proud to have such grand disciples, happy. All right, there you go. When one book is published, I feel like I conquered empire. That probably inspired devotees quite a lot, right?
He also said, he actually wrote to me, when I hear that a new temple is opened, I drink it like ambrosial nectar.
Nice.
I have a brief comment, if I may.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Regarding the book scores, I'm up here in the wilds of North America. I'm not distributing that many books, a few now and then, but when I hear those book scores, I smile, and that smile lasts all day. I think about it. It completely enlivens me to hear that 3 or 4 devotees went out and distributed so many books and collected so much Lakshmi from, in a materialistic society. It's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle. The devotees deserve the credit for trying, but Krishna is performing these miracles. Lord Chaitanya is spreading his movement, and these scores are absolutely, completely enlivening. Thank you so much for sharing them every morning. Hare Krishna.
All right, there you go. It's how you see it, right? How you see things.
Actually, it was a book distributor when he was here.
Oh yeah, nice. All right. Grantrad Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.